Last week, I came across an interesting release from the National Association of Realtors, or NAR. They released their summary of their recent report, that was in early April, for the home buyers and sellers generational trends. Now, the results, when I first looked at them, gave me pause. It was released on April Fool's Day, and I said, are you pulling my leg? But they're not. And the findings do provide some really interesting insights for both reverse and traditional mortgage professionals. Now, since 2013, NAR has been publishing this report, the Home Buyers and Sellers Generational Trends Report, and it kind of breaks down that behavior amongst different generations of buyers and sellers. So first, let's begin with Gen Z. Considering today's home affordability crisis, it's really not too surprising that Gen Z buyers, those 18 to 25, comprised only 3% of home buyers and just 2% of sellers. So they're having a really difficult time getting into the housing market. And with the way home prices have exploded during the pandemic and remain high post-pandemic, and also with mortgage rates having doubled since the pandemic, it's really not a surprise that Gen Z is really struggling to get into that. Next, we have the millennials, those 26 to 34, and buyers 35 to 44, the older millennials. So they broke the millennials into two groups. Now, millennials comprise 29% of recent home buyers, the younger ones. So those 26 to 34 are comprising about 29% of recent home buyers, and then older millennials at 17%. So the millennials are still purchasing homes, but they're struggling to do so again due to the affordability pressures. It says that 71% of younger millennials and 36% of older millennials were first-time home buyers. 66% or two-thirds were married couples, while younger millennials held the highest share of unmarried couples at 13% purchasing homes. Then we have Generation X, my generation, buyers 45 to 59. Gen Xers represented 24%, or nearly one quarter of recent home purchases. They did have the highest earning home buyers, with a median income of $130,000 as reported in 2023, and they're buying the larger homes. Now, that shouldn't be too much of a surprise, because Gen X, my generation and many of your generation, we are what's called the sandwich generation, meaning we're supporting both our own children, adult children, and our aging parents in some situations. So that is something that has led many of them to purchase a multi-generational home. So us Gen Xers are more likely to look at a home like that. In fact, I looked at one a couple years ago in Reno, Nevada from the Lennar Homes, and it was quite interesting. They had a separate entrance and kind of a smaller layout and an individual kitchen. So here's the big surprise. Baby boomers from the report, those 60 to 69, the younger cohort of baby boomers, and then the older group of 70 to 78, they represented 26%, the younger baby boomers, 26% of all recent home purchases, and then those 70 to 78 represented 68%. So this is quite a surprise. So there's a lot of baby boomers that are choosing not to age in place. And they purchased a home for many reasons, but primarily was the desire to relocate to be close to friends and family, or due to retirement, or to downsize. And younger baby boomers were the most likely to purchase a home in a small town, while older boomers are looking to be in a suburban area, most likely because that's where you're going to find you have the services that you need for healthcare and amenities that you would want during retirement. But let's look at some of the other data. So here's a breakdown of the age of the home buyers, which we just reviewed. But next, let's look at how each cohort or each generation is purchasing their home when it comes to financing. How many did? So nearly all of those aged 35 to 44, I was just a little younger than that when I purchased my first home, but 96% of those 26 to 34 are financing their home. It goes down ever so slightly for the group 35 to 44. Then you're down a little bit more for those 45 to 59. But look at this. We still have in the age 60 to 69, 61% are still financing their home to purchase it. And age 70 to 78, just a little less than one half. So that can tell us a number of things. The older generations are probably using the same old strategy that we see, and that is to take the sale proceeds from the previous home and then dump those into the purchase of their new house. Now, that can leave little cash on hand for unexpected financial shocks or financial emergencies. And this is really where the HECM for purchase strategy can help preserve some of that cash or the proceeds from the previous sale so they can have it on hand if needed. And of course, the benefit is they're moving into a new home without the burden of monthly required mortgage payments. So we're going to leave a link to this National Association of Realtors report. I found it very interesting and applicable for reverse mortgage borrowers, and I wanted to share it with you as well. So this week, let's talk about the Texas housing market, because each housing market is really a microcosm unto itself. As you know, as a mortgage professional, when it comes down to real estate, it's location, location, location. And Newsweek came out with a very interesting column. So if you are originating in the state of Texas, I believe that's in one of the top 7 states for HECM endorsements, then you'll definitely want to pay attention to this story. So we are seeing some interesting trends when it comes to housing in the state of Texas. So let's just take a look. It says the number of homes for sale in the Lone Star State is now exceeding pre-pandemic levels and continues to increase. And experts are warning that there could be on the horizon a serious pricing correction. And so, as many of you saw during the pandemic, it was all over the news wires that Texas was one of the top states for those migrating during the COVID-19 pandemic. Florida was also another one. And we saw a big influx, at least the state of Texas did, of out-of-state newcomers looking for lower cost of living, lower taxes, and also warmer climate. So to respond to this increase, this influx of migrants to the state of Texas in recent years, developers and home builders began to really ratchet up the pace of new construction. In fact, Texas had the fastest pace of new construction, accounting for 15% of all new home construction permits in 2024. So nationwide, 15% of permits came from the great state of Texas. That's an incredible number. But now, with the return to work orders from many and also the slowdown in migration and high mortgage rates, it's really preventing people from buying many of those new homes that have just been built. Also, another concerning trend is that typically inventory levels are low in January and February before they increase the following months in time for the spring home buying season. And that, of course, as we know, is the busiest time for realtors and home buyers. But in Texas right now, levels have been increasing at their fastest pace that we would not see in these slow months. In February, the number of active listings in the state of Texas was 105,867, as reported by the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. And that's up from 102,000 in just January. So we're seeing a lot of inventory begin to pile up. Redfin data shows even a bigger number with a total of 151,000 homes for sale in February. That's an increase of 16% from the previous year. Texas did have a 5-month supply in that particular month, and that's an increase year over year. So they typically say that a 5 to 6 month inventory of homes is a balanced market. But if the inventory keeps stacking up, we may see something different. So right now, Texas is favoring buyers. According to Redfin, only 11.5% of the homes sold were above listing price, and that's down a little over 1% from the previous year. But here's a more interesting stat, and that is over 28% of homes had their asking price or selling price slashed by the seller. And so we're seeing that the market's tipping a little bit more toward the home buyer. And of course, we have mortgage rates that are still kind of stuck in that range between high 6s and low 7% for those with good credit. And then you factor in homeowners insurance and property taxes, by the way. Both are very costly in the state of Texas. Many are just having a hard time buying a new home. So all these forces combined are really applying downward pressure to home prices in the Lone Star State. Houston saw its first decline in single-family home sales in February, down 3% year over year. And then the greater Houston area was pretty modest, with just a little over a 1% decrease to 325,000 in that given month. But Austin, which is a town that's been discussed much in real estate circles, 557 homes sold in the month of February. That's down 18% year over year. So Austin is really looking to be poised for some serious drops in home prices. And the median sale price of a home declined just a little less than 0.5% year over year. But let's see what the pros are saying. A real estate expert in Texas wrote on X, people don't realize just how quickly housing inventory is accumulating in Texas. Inventory typically bottoms out in January and peaks in the summer. And so that's one concern. And then Nick Gurley, which is Reventure Real Estate, which you can find him on YouTube, he is looking at some other signs as well, saying housing inventory in Texas keeps exploding. Listings are now at their highest level in a decade, which is true, up 25% year over year and 30% from pre-pandemic norms. Such a high supply is now causing downward price pressure all across the state. Don't be surprised if markets such as Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio begin to trend into negatives on price growth. So what happens next? Newsweek says that as this inventory begins to stack up with fewer interested borrowers, then we could see prices coming down. So for you as a reverse mortgage professional, you have potential borrowers in these areas. Their appraisals could come in a little below the estimated price that we thought. And you just want to be tracking these trends. We will be doing the same here at HECMWorld. It's time once again for our monthly installment of Reverse Market Insights Market Minute. We have with us once again John McHugh, but some of you may have noticed that last month we did not have a Market Minute, and this is because we just didn't have any data. There's a real lag in data ever since the Trump administration came in, and then we have Doge going on, staff cuts, and there's just a lot of turmoil. But also there was an upgrade being done, unbeknownst to us, to HUD and FHA's technology for their websites and their reporting. So there is a little bit of lag, but don't forget that Reverse Market Insight can help you with a lot of information you may found useful. One of those is the Reverse Market Insight newsletter. So if you go to their website, to the newsletters, you can see all of the recent newsletters for HECM lenders, and also they have retail and wholesale reports. So, John, without further ado, go ahead and tell us what you're seeing from the data in recent months.
Well, thanks, Shannon, for having me back yet again. Every month lately, I've been kind of wondering what to talk about because, HUD had stopped putting out, some data. In fact, they removed websites off the website or removed pages off the website altogether. I know Shannon's reported about all of this, but the good news is pages are back. We have some updated data, not quite to where we would love it to be, but it is updated, so that is nice. So with that, I wanted to touch on case number assignments because I haven't done that in a little while. Again, I know Shannon recently has talked about this, but today we're going to be talking about March endorsement numbers, and these case numbers really kind of correlate to what we're going to be seeing as far as endorsements are concerned. So case numbers for 2024, where I really want to pick up here because September was the last kind of official reporting that HUD had put out. So we have October numbers here with 4,331, which ended up being the height of case number assignments for the year. That was the highest number, there, and a lot of that was being driven by the refinance numbers there. So, however, as we started to see the 10-year CMT starting to spike in October, we started seeing case number assignments drop by the end of the year. So from October to December, we actually had a 41% drop in overall case numbers. In fact, the largest percentage again was that HECM refinance number because the rates went up so much. We went down by 69%. HECM purchase was down by over 40%. And new equity ones were down by over 35%. So we really can see the effect that the 10-year CMT had as far as case numbers are concerned. And as we always know, right, case numbers are kind of your precursor as to what we can expect for future fundings and endorsements, which takes us into today, or into at least through March. So March endorsements were down over 14% to 2,128 loans. If we start looking from January, where we were at 2,641 to now at 2,128, right? We've been dropping again because of that 10-year CMT number and because we started seeing the application numbers starting to drop by the end of last year, which is now translating to reduced fundings. The good thing is where we spoke about applications dropping, or not applications, case numbers dropping from 41% from October to December. From January to March of this year, we've only seen just over a 21% drop. So still a significant drop, but it's only dropped half as much as we saw case numbers drop by. As far as all the regions are concerned, they were all down with the exception of Mid-Atlantic, which gained 10.7% to 145 loans. The Midwest only had a 5.6% decline with 170 loans, and New England dropped 9.2% to 109 loans. As far as the top 10 lenders for March are concerned, really similar. All of them were down with the exception of high tech, which was up by 29% to 53 loans, which was their highest since September. South River had a little decrease here of 1.5% to 66 loans, and Mutual Omaha gave back 2.1% to finish with 476 loans. So what's some of the takeaways from all of this? Well, first, HUD finally started publishing some new data again, which is great. It's not where we would expect it at this time, but it's still really positive that they've put those pages back and updated some of the data. So that's been really exciting. Second, that obviously the 10-year CMTs, has an impact on case numbers and endorsements, right? But they're not an equal effect, and that's really important to understand. So, the bad news is that recently the bond market has been all over the place. So, who really knows what we can expect anytime soon? So, where rates go this year is really anyone's guess. Lastly, we can't influence either of these first 2 points. And with the market, the stock market, really taking some hits here recently, and prices of some very important things going up right now. What you guys are doing is so important to get out there to help people, maintain their retirement accounts and just kind of afford to continue to stay in their homes. So I encourage you to keep up the good fight and trying to get those loans in every day. So tune in next month to see what happens in April.